Most entrepreneurs think that they need more time, more people, more systems, more money. But the truth is you don't need more. You actually need less and less complexity, right? You need fewer unnecessary steps, fewer things to log into, and a clearer path forward. And that's exactly what I'm going to dive in today. I want to welcome everyone to the very, very first Libby DeLucien Podcast. We are doing a rebrand. So what is the Libby DeLucien Podcast? It is Libby DeLucien Podcast, one layer deep. It's about business, family, and life. How do we fully integrate it? And it's going to be unfiltered. Yay. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because I wrote a book, and we want to dive into what are some of the things, the frameworks that I use to build multiple businesses with and have a great family, great marriage, and great personal life. And how did I do this? So many entrepreneurs want to grow and scale businesses, not just one, multiple. Like we have an idea a minute racing through our heads. So again, I want to welcome everyone. I just want to give a clear upfront expectation that this is not going to just be a business podcast. It's not going to be the typical business podcast. We're going to go beyond the surface, and we're really going to look at stripping back the noise, stripping back the layers, and getting to the root of what actually moves the needle forward in life and business. Why? Because we all know that there is little to no separation between business and life if you're an entrepreneur. It is oddly commingled. It looks ugly at times. Sometimes it looks great. You're in different seasons. Like sometimes a business needs you to just work 100 hours, and sometimes you can take a vacation to Cancun for a week and not have to answer your phone. And that's okay. But we're going to get into stripping the things back and really diving into what moves that needle forward. So again, I want to introduce you to the new podcast. And we're going to talk about in this episode, the one layer deep framework and how it's going to help you, the business owner, simplify, scale, and systematize everything, business, life, marriage. And you can say, oh my God, I don't want to systematize my marriage. Systematizing your life will create so much freedom and bring down the chaos, guys. How many of you are tired of living in chaos? I lived in chaos for so many years. It's because I made it too complicated. Like if it's too hard to maintain the system, then the system is broken. And so we could be causing the chaos in our business. We could be the bottleneck. We are the bottleneck. I'm going to take the could out. I am the bottleneck. I learned this. And, when did I learn I was the bottleneck? Actually, I learned it. I think you're different phases. You're always going to be the bottleneck, and you have to learn how to keep stepping back and back and back and back. And, I learned it in my cleaning company. I learned it in the software companies. I learned it as a mom. I learned it as a parent. So there are bottlenecks that we're causing. And how do we notice that? Right? How do we see that? And I want to talk about how letting go can be one of the hardest things that you can do in your business, especially as a woman. And letting go when it comes to family things, I think are harder for women, but how letting go can be one of the hardest things. And so, there's this myth that if I don't do it, it won't get done right? If I don't do it, it's not going to get done right. That was me years ago. And we were stuck. We couldn't grow. I was frustrated. It was chaos. I had to answer every question that came in from every employee and every customer. And it just sucked. It just sucked. And, then there's the other myth that I had to break free. And that myth was, as the parent, hey, like I had to cook every dinner. I didn't need help in my house because then it was, how was I perceived? Like, this is how I was raised. I'm the woman. I'm supposed to do these things. Now, that was my problem. My husband wasn't saying that. That was my problem in my mind because it was like that stamp that you grow up with and society tells you that you're supposed to do the laundry. You're the mom. Like you're supposed to cook dinner. And I want to break that myth as well. So what is one layer deep? How are we going to use this? How are we going to use this to simplify and execute? So I want to talk about buy back your time. Buy back your time right now is super, super popular. Super loved and great book. But why this framework is so important is because it's the step before buying back your time. It is the step before outsourcing. It's the step before delegating. Now I'm going to get into that. and get into why this is so important and I'm going to walk through some things with you that are going to help you kind of think about this in a different way. So ours is it is the 1 layer deep loop. And I have 4 questions that you can ask yourself in this 1 layer deep loop to see, am I overcomplicating this? Is it simple enough? Is it the action before the result? Is it making it so simple that it's elementary? So here are the 4 questions in the 1 layer deep loop. And first is we have to clarify the outcome, right? And what's the real goal here, right? We got to ask ourselves, what is the real goal? And sometimes as business owners, we don't even know that. We just know that we need to get it done or we want to get it done, but what's the real goal? The second is audit the process. What's wasting time? Audit the process. Are we doing too many handoffs in it? When you audit the process, I just had a great friend go through Aaron Coleman, go through one of my tools in the book and fired 2 people. After he did, he was like, Libby, oh my God. And I said, I know, Aaron. I was like, it's horrifying. But in reality, like we set them up to fail because we didn't audit the process. We didn't audit certain things. And then reduce to 1 layer deep, right? So in it was, what's the real goal here? What's wasting time? And then what's the simplest and most direct step? Let's say that again. What's the simplest and most direct step to get to the solution? And then this is a big one. This is number 4. And we use this in our kids. If you guys know me, my past, we're going way back past. I come from animal husbandry. I come from training. And this is something we did all the time when it came to working with animals. And it was priming the animals. Like your dog is primed. They know when it's 5 o'clock. And so when we talk about priming for execution, number 4 is priming for execution. Will this sustain itself without extra layers? And so we always talk about priming with kids is very common. I always say, hey, and my husband's great at this. Hey, Yaya, it's 30 minutes to bedtime. Hey, Yaya, it is 5 minutes to bedtime. Instead of just saying, hey, it's bedtime. And she's like, what? I didn't know. I'm not ready. And so priming, right? You need to prime for execution. Will this sustain itself without extra layers? So we want to get to the core of simplicity. Now, when we make things, I'm like, can Yaya follow this? And she's 6. I'm like, could she understand it? And could she follow it? And I'm not trying to undermine anybody, but to scale, we have to make things simple for efficiency. And so I want to really talk about actionable takeaways here that you can put into place, that you can go and do right now, like steps for you to go and implement. So what are those? And these are great things to take away and think about when you go and do. So before you try to buy back your time, you have to ask yourself, what's the one thing I can simplify today? One thing. Why would you ask yourself this? Well, because before you can buy back your time, you need to make sure you're not buying back inefficiencies, right? Before you can optimize a system, you need to make sure you've simplified it. Before you can delegate, you need to make sure you've clarified on what should be delegated. Not everything should be delegated, guys, but what is the thing that I can delegate right now that would save me the most time and make me the most money? And before you can execute, you need to make sure, or you need to ensure that the decision is primed for success. What does success look like? What does it look like? So many people, and I've seen my husband do this too, and he's learned it, is that when we make a process, we're making a process to fix something broken. And so we're just maintaining status quo. What does that mean? That means our process is allowing the mistake to happen and be reactive to just fixing it. But when we go in to make a process or make something to automate, to delegate, are we allowing it to, get broken and be in a reactive state versus creating a process so that, that issue doesn't happen again, but it also has the goal in mind, the outcome is in mind, the end. And so now for the process is preventing it from happening again, but also has the end goal in mind. If you're just making them to fix issues, then the issues will still continue and the process is just addressing it when the issue happens. Gets a little in our head. But an example I want to give to you guys is how micro playbooks. So this is something that we're talking about in the book. The book, when I first started writing it, it was going to be a playbook book, micro playbooks. When I first started this, so I've always been organized. My home service company is called Organize It. It started as an organizing company. Now we do organizing and cleaning. But I've always been very systems based, very process based. And so we started with processes, and we started with giant processes. And then I was like, well, this is stupid. Nobody's reading it. And I made them for me. But I don't operate like my office or like our cleaning technicians or our organizers. And so they were worthless. They were too long. They weren't made for the consumer, which is the person consuming them. And so they didn't help me. And then the evolution came of like the TikTok mindset. And then so I started to reinvent the way the playbooks were made. And we came up with micro playbooks. And so now we're very micro playbook heavy in all of our companies. And this is the one layer deep mindset around micro playbooks, right? One layer deep is a decision-making framework that micro playbooks fit inside of. And they really helped me. This micro playbook, the way we moved our playbooks from regular SOPs and playbooks to micro playbooks really changed so much for us. One, couldn't buy back my time yet because I'd buy back inefficiencies. And that $7 hour remote person, 3 times as slow as someone who is efficient, is now costing me $21 an hour versus if I was to hire a $21 an hour level person. So it's not always the best thing to go hire cheap, right? Unless I have the process so nailed in and the vision and the outcome, you're just buying back your inefficiencies. So the micro playbook helped me stop answering so many of the day-to-day questions. The same question I answer 100 times a day. I just did a coaching call with someone. She goes, Libby, I'm so tired of answering the same question over and over and over. And I think where the overwhelm comes in is like, oh my God, I have to answer these questions still and create the solution. And I don't have enough energy to do both. And that's a really hard spot to be in. That's like one of those valleys of despair. I still have to maintain it, but man, I have to go and do some major, deep work. And I think where some of this stuff becomes unfair is we see people on social media and we are comparing ourselves to like the Layla and Alex Hermosis, which I love their content. Like, I'm not going to lie. But man, if you're a mom or dad, it's really, you are self-sabotaging when you're comparing yourself to them because they don't have kids, man. It changes everything when you have responsibilities, different responsibilities in the business that maybe they don't have, or in your family that they don't have. And that's okay. Everyone's different, but stop comparing yourself to like people that are just built different. Because you're self-sabotaging and then you're all in your head and you're all in yourself. You're like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this. You are. It's just going to be different, right? It's just going to be different. I read something the other day, how Alex Hormozi gets things done. He's like double headphones, noise canceling, earplugs. I'm like, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I have children and I'm scared that if something happens to them, I wouldn't be there. And I've lived that. I have lived through that fear because one of our children had, an emergency happen and I missed the call. I was on a meeting and I didn't answer it. And those are the things that we have to stop comparing ourselves to when it's like, how do we fix this? How do we dive in? There are solutions, but you need to make sure you're listening to the people that have been where you're at and they've experienced it from your perspective, moms, kids, parents, dads, right? But that also you're not holding yourself to this unrealistic view because your life is different. It's just different. So micro playbooks really, really helped me. Why? Because they were small, bite-sized pieces I could make on the fly. I have a whole framework for micro playbooks I could make on the fly while kind of almost in real time. We have a character limit for the micro playbook so that they're short, digestible pieces. And if they're a video, it is a watch time limit. But this helped me stop answering the same questions over and over and over. I had to make it into bite-sized, digestible pieces to one, get my staff to use it, but two, for it not to feel so overwhelming for me. Kind of that's my journey of like what helped me. And that's only one step because we got to make them. And then there's the whole other section. And this is in the book too. Like, where do we house them? How do we organize it? How do we get in front of our people? And if this was 2023, I would say, hey, are people following your playbooks? Well, the world has changed and this is 2025. I don't give a crap who's following my playbook or reading it. I care. Am I now delivering those great playbooks using AI and technology to them in real time without them even asking for them? Like that's where we're going with this. And so, what's the challenge? Well, my challenge to you is you're going to have to sit down and really find what's one area of your business. What's one task I could do to help cut down just one step, and implement one thing this week? Like, what's something I could do? What's a step that is worthless? Like, hey, what did I make and nobody's following it? let's audit that. I just told Chris, like, we do this every 6 months, by the way, guys, in a company, because a company is like a person. It evolves and it grows. And if you're leaving old stuff in there, in those drives, in those playbooks, in your website, in your knowledge bases, in your training, your employees are all kind of confused. They're all so we do a few things every 6 months in the companies. We do time audits, day in the life of, and then we do an audit. Okay, then a review of, okay, what software do they no one mentioned that they're using? All right, well, we don't need that. Like, let's re-examine why we're using this. What processes are no longer being used, right? And or followed. Two different things, right? Used is, we don't do that anymore. So one thing I've noticed, my perspective is very different than a lot of business owners. I own a home service company, which is a service-based company. It's a very linear in growth, right? If I want to make more money, I need more people and more customers. And then I have a software perspective. I own two softwares. It's different. It's not as linear. It's more exponential in growth. But one thing I've noticed is that they need to be audited about the same amount, whether you're software or a home service company. And that's because our softwares that we use in our home service company change and do updates. And a lot of our processes or micro playbooks are built around that. Are they up to date? Are they accurate? Who's using them? Who's not? And then I found that in our software, they have to be almost updated probably a little bit more, and they have to be even more simple. And that's not even a real word, simpler, because technology and software changes so fast. I mean, so fast, it's crazy. But we've gotten to, in the software, where we stop having such details in our playbooks and more higher level view. And that's really helped us. But my challenge is to you is you need to audit. You need to pick some things and audit. Like I told you, my friend Aaron, he audited he had three remote people. He audited them. He had them all do a time audit. And then I was going to give him the next step. I was like, okay, after you do that, then there's the next step. He did that. And he was like, I'm mortified. I'm horrified. And I said, I know it's hard to see. I said, here's the next step. Here's what I want to do next. He goes, no, I don't want to do the next step. Let's just stop right here. And he's like, I need to get rid of two of them. My processes are broken. It's not they're broken. My process, he goes, I need to work on the processes first. Then we'll go to the next step. And I said, that's great. Because you don't want to keep going if you know that something's already broken. So again, find a task in your business or find an area in the business that you could either cut down to just one step. What's a task? What is so simple that you do it every day and you don't even realize it? So what's one task that you could cut down to one layer? I'll give you an example of mine. In my calendar, I review our business numbers very frequently, almost daily. And so how did I do that? Well, one, put it in your calendar, put it on recurring. That didn't work for me though, because I did all those things. So the next thing I did to take it to one, like cut one step out, was I hyperlinked all of the resources in that calendar event. So now when I go to check on the companies, I just click in my calendar and I was like, oh, there's the Organize It numbers, here's Woot Recruit numbers, and here's Sell Convert Clean numbers. So I can audit those numbers with one click. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to look for anything else. I don't even need passwords because they're already saved in my Chrome profile. But I cut out the step of like, oh gosh, now I have to go over to Stripe. And this is a whole nother problem I have, but we'll fix that later. Each company runs in different reporting softwares. I'm like, so, they're all in different things, but hyperlinking them within my calendar, I was able to cut out a step, and it's one layer to get to the solution, one layer to get to where I was trying to go. So, as far as what you can expect for this podcast. So this podcast, we're going to dive into a lot of frameworks. We're going to dive into having a guest. So you're going to see a little bit of me, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of guest, and Q&A. We want to do some live Q&A because we know that this is a super hard thing to do. Running a business and having a great family is not easy. It's not easy. But it can be done. It can be done. There's one of those statements that for the longest time, it confused me. It's like, more is less. Like, if you want more, do less. And it's not like, it doesn't mean do less actual work necessarily. It's like, if I want more, I have to do less. I have to have less. One of the biggest bottlenecks for me and Organize It, when we tried to break $1 million in the cleaning company, was I created too many layers of complexity. I had too many things to log into. I wanted you to ask yourself, how many tabs does your office staff have to open on their browsers to run the day? right? What's the goal? Well, if you have to have like 6 or 8 tabs open, like that's too many tabs. How can I minimize this? And this even comes down to like software or groups that you're in, or like when we say groups, like mastermind groups, learning groups, courses, overcommitting to things, it all takes up time. All softwares, logins. So like I was on a call the other day with our media team with the accountant. And they're like, oh, blah, 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 gave you a login for, we filed for some sort of tax credit. We qualified for R&D. So if you're a software owner, there's R&D tax credits that are great. And they're like, oh, they gave you a login. I said, oh no, I refused it. I said, no, I don't. I'm not taking it. I won't do this if you're making me have another software and another login. Not doing it. And she goes, oh, I know. I feel you. And this was an employee. She said, oh my God, I feel you. She's like, I have so many logins. I can't keep up with the logins and the passwords. And then I have to reset them. And then like, yeah. And so I hope this hit home for you and what we're going to do and why I'm changing it. And the reason I'm changing it is because it was Fearlessness. We did 47 episodes as Fearlessness, 47 weeks, 47 episodes. It was great. I love all my guests, but I wanted to challenge myself because to host the podcast more around my voice and my vision, the book, the frameworks, the lessons, I had to have another level of transparency, another level of me planning and prepping and storytelling and sharing. And then, yes, we're going to have guests and we're going to do Q&A so we can answer your questions. But it took another level of me that I was like, oh, I didn't want to do it. And I only didn't want to do it because it was work. It was harder. So I'm super excited for what this podcast has to offer, what we're doing, the guests that we're going to bring. So if I ask you to be a guest, we're going deep. We're going deep on the lessons, the stories, the struggles, the pains, right? So that we can share with others. I don't want surface level. I don't want just conversational. I want meaningful conversation, meaningful interaction so that we can all get to the ultimate goal. So if today's episode hit home, I want to make sure that you share it with another entrepreneur or spouse of an entrepreneur. I'm married to an introvert. He helps run one of the companies. He's phenomenal. And a lot of us do this. We work with our spouses. We want to work with our spouses. We love working with them or we hate. I mean, I've been on both sides, but share it with an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur who just might need to hear this. And make sure, because we're going to do some Q&A, make sure that if you have questions, you get them to us. Drop them to us in social media, in YouTube, PM them to me, DM them to me, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. So again, I want to make sure you subscribe, you like, you share, and I am super excited for the One Layer Deep book to drop. I will be having a pre-purchase link. I will be also building a launch team. So if you want to be part of this launch of One Layer Deep and the movement that you're going to be a part of, just let me know and I can send you an invite to that launch team to help spread the word to any other entrepreneur that's living in chaos, that's struggling, that just wants to simplify, but you don't know how because your brain naturally overcomplicates everything. Or if you're just struggling, letting go, it's our baby. That business is our baby. We birthed it and we raised it and we love it, but we're also fucking suffocating it to no end. It's like, I don't know, I'm going on a tangent now. I don't know if you've ever seen a Couples Retreat, the comedy. It's a hilarious movie, but there's a part in the movie and it's called where they're in that therapy, and the couples therapy is like the puppy sudden death syndrome, where you love it so much that you're smothering it, that you're freaking killing it because you are literally hugging it to death. And I feel like that is what most of us are doing to our business. When we let go, when we take the time to say, hey, how do we simplify things? How do we empower our team? Things just take off. By you doing that, smothering that business, that puppy sudden puppy death syndrome, you're also undermining your team, undermining your staff, and they probably have so much skill and ability that the business might actually be better off with you letting go a little bit, letting go, stepping out and doing that owner role of that, creating connections, that visionary, big relationships, culture, vision, and future forecasting is what we're supposed to be doing as a business owner. So love this topic. I am so passionate about it. If you like, share, follow. And if there's a topic that you're struggling in with business, let us know what it is so that we can help find the right resource, guest, or framework that we use in our business to help you grow and scale. One of the other exciting parts about this is we're getting ready to give everything away to everybody, all of our processes, all of our frameworks. How did we do this? How did I build 3 businesses in 6 years? And I have a 6-year-old. So please don't give me an excuse that, oh, my kids, or, oh, I don't have time. I built 3 in 6 years to over $1 million each. In that time frame, I built my cleaning company from 0 to $1 million in 3 years. I built Woot Recruit to 0 to $1 million, I think, in a year. And then Sell Convert Clean is new. So we're not at $1 million yet. That one just launched a few months ago, but our goal is to get there very, very fast. Not to mention the coaching we do. And we have also a 1 Layer Deep program. It's a 1 Layer Deep lifestyle program that we have as well. So again, lots to share, lots of experience, storytelling. I'm so excited. And I want to thank you guys for listening to the first episode of the rebrand, going from Fearlessness to the Libby DeLucien Podcast, 1 Layer Deep, family, business, family, life, fully integrated and unfiltered.